Grey November light bled through the high, narrow windows of my university's main hall, falling in tired strips across the ancient tile floor. The room was colder than usual, and my shoes squeaked against the marble as I entered, heart a guttural drum beneath my wool sweater. Ahead, 3 members of the literature committee murmured over their neatly stacked notes. I barely heard the patter of my own steps. A sharpened hope flickered in my lungs. I had spent 3 years on that manuscript, carving nights from bone, refusing dinners, parties, anything that threatened the little time I had. Professor Di Martino, with his square glasses and impenetrable calm, cleared his throat as I sat down, his lips pressed together in a way that made reading him impossible. A yellowed clock ticked laboriously above his head. "We appreciate your submission, Signorina Ferry," he began. His voice was gentle but held a finality that made my teeth grit. Lucia, the other student before me, got a cup of tea with her review. They had only water for me. "That was the first omen," he continued. "Your work ambitious, yes, but structurally unsound, repetitive in places. We found the plot chaotic. Your Italian is passionate but unpolished. Perhaps," he paused, fingertips together, "it is not yet the time to pursue publication or even advanced study in this manner. There should have been more, maybe a suggestion of hope, an invitation to revise, or a not yet." Instead, Professor Selsai, the oldest of the 3, let out a barely stifled sigh and offered me an odd, pitying smile. "You know, my dear, Rome does not need another failed novelist. Consider teaching. Your parents would be relieved." Their voices mingled into a slow humiliation. Something shriveled inside me, not rage, not exactly. Rage is hot, wild. What I felt was colder, a fist clenched around a stone. I kept myself silent. I thanked them because it was expected. They would not see me break. On the tram back to Trastevere, the city flickered past, old stones and graffiti, pigeons circling along the sad Tiber. I clenched my notebook until my fingers numbed. The weight of that committee room pressed down, and with every jolt of the tram I felt bits of myself scatter, a line here, a hope there, falling into cracks where I feared nothing might ever grow. At home, our building's entryway still smelled of garlic and last week's rain. Zia Rosa's voice echoed up the stairwell before I even unlocked the door. "Isabella, back early." She was thick-set, apron already dusted with flour. My mother stood beside her, hands rolled in dough. The kitchen was warm, flour drifting through the air as if Rome herself exhaled some gentle, ruined hope. They looked up. My father barely glanced up from his television, a sports program blaring. How did it go? I shook my head. All 3 women in my family, 2 aunts and my mother, sighed with the practiced synchronicity of decades. My cousin Marco, slouched in his soccer kit, muttered, "Told you, Issa. Books are for reading, not writing. Who do you think you are, Moravia?" If I'd spoken then, I think I would have screamed. But I just stood, hands stiff, feeling the cruelty of their comfort. My mother tried to reassure me. "You'll teach, it's good work, secure," but her words knocked against that stone in my chest. At dinner, I heard them whisper, "Think she'll give this up now? She's so stubborn." My uncle made a joke about our famous novelist, and everyone laughed. Even my grandmother smiled, not unkindly. I watched the steam rise off my plate, swallowed each bite around a knot of fury. That night, unable to sleep, I wandered the city. Rome had her own music in the off hours, bottle clinks, lovers' laughter, the occasional cry echoing off stones shaped by centuries. As I crossed the Ponte Sisto, standing above the black drifting water, my rage heated, then cooled, settling into a vow sharper than anything spoken aloud. I wouldn't abandon the work, even if nobody read it, even if it shamed me. The following months blurred. I sent inquiries to anyone, all rejections. I worked 2 jobs, waiting tables in the morning, dusting shelves at a used bookstore in the afternoons. Sometimes I'd catch sight of Professor Di Martino in the street, carrying his briefcase like a scepter, and I'd duck into a corner, ashamed to be seen so adrift. My family grew used to my silences and lateness, assuming my phase would dissolve like morning fog. On my days off, I wrote. My desk was an old door balanced on crates set before a window overlooking crumbling rooftops and the blue, impossible sky. I wrote at dawn while the city was still whispering secrets to itself, and at midnight when hope felt thin but the urge to continue was thicker than ever. Notebooks filled, stories grew and died. I wrote bad poetry, stories that veered and faltered, essays that no one would publish. Every fresh rejection built a skin over my fury. My family's laughter, never cruel, not truly but dismissive, haunted my steps, an echo I could not be rid of. One December, during a particularly lean stretch where even bread was a luxury and my boots leaked water, I sold 3 short stories to a small online journal in the UK. €50. The money felt like a fortune because it was not about numbers, it was about breathing room. I showed my mother the letter, grinning, and she said, "Oh, that, but they're not paying enough to live, right?" Don't be silly. I wanted to strike the table, to scream that baristas with master's degrees were the chorus of our times, but I didn't. The stone held me steady. Italy is not kind to dreamers. You swim against tides of bureaucracy, tradition, and mild but constant ridicule. The year I turned 27, my father asked again over Christmas dinner, "When will you stop?" He didn't mean harm. He offered me an application to a bank, a cousin who can get you in. It was safer, saner. I thanked him. I did not give up. And then, 5 years after my committee review, something shifted. By then, I had learned to strip back my stories, to trust my own voice instead of sewing together others. I wrote a novel about Rome, not the marble city for tourists, but the knotted streets under Trastevia's bridges, the hunger, the secret loves, the anger and pride and beauty no guidebook describes. I sent out the manuscript expecting nothing. In February, an email landed in my box from an agent in Milan. He wrote, "Your voice is authentic, fierce. I want to represent you. Are you free for a call?" The next months were a flurry. The manuscript was sold, translated, and in the autumn, Tra la Omba di Roma arrived in heavy boxes at my door. My name on the cover shimmered. I touched it as if it were a living thing, but even as my phone filled with interviews and royalty statements, even as critics called it visceral and necessary, I heard my family's laughter in the background, saw Professor Di Martino's half-disguised sigh. The sense of not being quite welcome into my own success lingered, as if Rome herself still asked permission for every step. I toured. I spoke at events in Milan, Florence, Palermo, Rome, though Rome was still home. My publisher insisted the launch event must be there. The city itself is your novel, Isabella. Invite your family, make a scene. The night of the event, I entered the library in the Piazza della Minerva, which rose golden and magnificent over the cobblestones, watched over by Bernini's elephant. The reading room was lined with faces curious, indifferent, skeptical. Near the back, crammed by a window, my family sat dressed in their best, my mother in a dark dress she saved for baptisms, Zia Rosa with her hair finally tamed, Marco awkward in a too-tight shirt. I caught their eyes and their discomfort was palpable. My father turned a book in his hands, almost hiding behind it. The room filled, people standing along the wall. I was introduced by a critic who said words I barely heard. When she said, "We are pleased to have Isabella Ferri, whose debut paints a Rome few have had the courage to write," my hands trembled visibly. The nerves made me lightheaded, but that old stone steadied me, cold and reassuring. I read, my voice shook but did not waver. The words rolled out, my own, unvarnished, bruised with love and anger. I heard a gasp in the crowd at a passage about family, about being invisible in the city you love. I looked directly at the window where my mother sat, eyes shining, jaw clenched. Afterward, applause thundered. A line formed for the signing. For an hour, I signed book after book. Names I didn't know, faces that thanked me, asked if I'd lived here all my life, confessed their own struggles. An old woman, hair in net, pressed my hand. "Your book, it's my Rome too," she said. My heart ached with gratitude. My family kept to one side. They watched as strangers queued for my signature, as a publisher from Marseille pressed a business card into my hand. Marco was the first to approach, shuffling awkwardly. "Cugina, I didn't know." "Didn't know what?" He looked away. That people would care. His voice was thin, uncertain. My mother lingered behind, hands twisting the strap of her purse. "You made all this," she whispered, a drag of disbelief in her voice. "It's just a book, Mama," I said softly. "It's not just." My father spoke then unexpectedly. His face was tight, eyes shining. "I never thought," he hesitated then, lowering his voice. "We just didn't want you to starve, Issa. We were afraid for you, not of you." The crowd thinned. My uncle, normally loud and brash, gripped my shoulder, eyes fierce. "Your grandmother says you are stubborn, but it is good, you proved us wrong," he laughed, embarrassed. "Next time sign my book first, eh?" I smiled, the knot in my chest unwinding, raw and strange. The anger that fueled me began to dissolve, replaced by a tentative joy. My success was here, real and visible, the books in their hands, the line of strangers, the faint recognition in their eyes, not just for them but for me too. When we left the library, the city was lit by orange lamps, crowds drifted around us, my family clustered close, for once hesitant as if my work had built new walls. I stopped, clutching my copy close. "Let's have dinner," I said, voice firmer than before. "On me, all of you." We trekked through Rome's familiar knots, the same stones, the same bridges, all changed now. The trattoria was loud, tables crammed close. My mother ordered for everyone as if nothing was different, but her eyes never left me. In the laughter, the jostling, someone said, "Our Issa, the novelist," and there was no mockery, only pride shining through their old worry. Later, as we spilled out onto the street, my aunt pulled me aside. The air was cool, stars faint above the yellow wash of the lamps. "I was wrong to laugh," she said, voice rough. "I thought dreams like that, they eat you alive. But you didn't let go, you held on, and now," she gestured helplessly toward the library, the books glowing in my bag. I squeezed her hand. "I was angry," I admitted, "but I couldn't stop. Even when you all doubted me." She nodded. "Stubborn runs in the family," she grinned, wiping her eyes. "Maybe it's the best part of us." We walked home together, stories interwoven, laughter ringing strange and new. I felt the stone at my heart dissolve at last, leaving only the imprint, a memory, not a weight. That night the city felt softer, the air threaded with something lighter. I stood once more on the Pont Sisto, watching the water slip under dark arches. Rome had not changed, but I had. My family's faces, fear and pride, love and regret, were real, and I forgave them and myself. The rage that had carried me through rejection and ridicule was gone now, replaced by something quieter but deeper. I was home. I had returned, as stubborn as I began, but no longer alone. And all around me the city waited, old stones shining in the quiet night, ready to greet the next stubborn dream, whatever it might be.